Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the PGA DFS First Look Show for the Farmers Insurance Open. What I would consider the official start to the year, as a lot of the golfers consider it their first start of the year as well. And it is a great one. We've got Torrey Pines on tap, but with a little bit going on in the sports world, we got Tom Brady back in the Super Bowl. That's, of course, a favorite of mine, going against Pat Mahomes. Jeff, it's going to be a week of maybe a little bit more focus on golf as there is no football, and DraftKings gave us our biggest GPP yet. So welcome to the show. I would assume you would say this is your first real excitement tournament of the year.
Yeah, it is. It's always kind of feel like I get the season going here. I've had a couple good weeks before at the Sony Open and stuff like that. But this is just, I don't know. You just always kind of getting ready. This is where I'm like really diving into golf and getting a little bit more excited for it. We got bigger events coming up. The Masters is now a little bit closer, and start to pay a little bit more attention to it. Like you said, the DraftKings contests are fantastic this week. So,
sure.
Let's bring it on. And I mean, Torrey Pines is just such a perfect start to get going. It's a big boy course. So yeah, I like this event.
Yeah, and we'll certainly get into that. And of course, thank you for joining us here on this Monday afternoon, taking maybe a couple of seconds from going to your local GameStop and or trading it. So make sure you like and subscribe here to our channel. Of course, I'm coming out with my top 5 videos all week, and Jeff also with some great content. So make sure you like and subscribe as we march toward our 50,000 subscribers. Pretty cool goal there, not going to lie. So let's start off, Jeff, we're talking a little bit about Si-Woo Kim, and we talked a bit about him on this show last week. Talked about his consistent form. It's his third PGA Tour title. Now, 2 of the 3 have been on Pete Dye tracks, maybe even the third one. And he had that second at RBC Heritage, which is also a Pete Dye track. So I wanted to bring into the show and talk about course architects. Now, granted, we don't talk about that much on this show. There's not much to discuss, but there definitely seems to be a trend here with Si-Woo Kim and his performances on courses designed by Pete Dye.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just been a trend with Si-Woo. I mean, I talked about it with you a bit before the show. Like, you always got to consider him here, and a little bit of, again, I don't put too much pressure on myself the first couple events of the year, but like it is a little bit annoying to see that because he was trending really well, just way more consistent golf towards the end of last year than we were used to seeing from Si-Woo Kim. Used to be a guy who, come in, withdraw with a back injury, and then, pop up with like one good event and then miss 5 cuts. But he really wasn't like that last year at all. He's very consistent all around player too. So yeah, I don't know what it is with Dye. It just, again, fits his eye. I think it just, maybe more of the style of player he is. He can be aggressive on the approaches, which you kind of have to be with Dye. You've got to commit. And I think Si-Woo is that kind of player. So I think it really just fits him, fits his eye, fits his style of game. And again, it's something you just got to put in the memory bank. If he's trending with even a little bit of form, you got to consider him.
Yeah, totally agree. Dye is not your
Dye courses. Yeah.
Yeah. On your Peter Dye courses, it's not how far can you hit the ball. And Si-Woo Kim is not known for his distance, but he combines the distance and accuracy trait really well that allows him to go at a lot of these tougher risk reward Pete Dye type of tracks. So love that. I love the fact that Si-Woo Kim continues to kind of put that in. And I think it would be important to note, which I am going to bring up a little bit later in the show, he started working with Butch Harmon last year. And obviously Butch Harmon, one of the best, if not the best coaches on the PGA Tour. It's clear. You just said it. He used to be a guy that would withdraw when he got out of contention. You couldn't rely on him. All of a sudden, these last 6 months, I mean, he hasn't missed many cuts and he's been in the top echelon. So good to see Si-Woo Kim. I'm pulling for both he and Sung J.M. at the Olympics this year. I hope it goes off, of course, and they can avoid military service. I don't want to lose another young, talented star in South Korea to that service. So we lost a few, Sung Yul No, Sang Moon Bae. So like to keep Si-Woo Kim over here as long as we can. Now let's move on to our guy here, our show's guy, I should say. We talk about this one. We both expect massive things from this guy this year. Talking about Patrick Cantlay. He shot 18 under on the weekend, Jeff, and still didn't win. What do you think it was? Do you think it was just lazy playing with Phil Mickelson and Fowler the first 2 days? Why couldn't he get it going? And I think we both agree he should have won this golf tournament.
I mean, look, it's impressive by Cantlay. Look, and we have talked about him a bit. I like the way he's trending for the Masters. I'd still really take a look if you're looking at the futures there. I brought him up, and I know I wrote an article about him. I think it was 2 weeks ago now. You can probably find it on my Twitter. I'll try and retweet it. But the value I think you're getting with Cantlay for a future at the Masters is really good. He really kind of figured it out, started to play more towards the end of last year, got the right all-around game for it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's early season, so you're not gonna give him too much guff for starting slowly, but that's probably what it was. I mean, he's playing with a couple buddies out in the desert. It's a rotational course. We see this sometimes, and that's why these events you see the long shot winners, because the top players sometimes they get mixed in with these groups, and it's more of a laid back style to start. But what a great performance, man, on the weekend. I mean, that's what you kind of see from players who, in my opinion, are trending towards something bigger. You see them get in the mix, regardless of how they started. That's what we want to see from Cantlay more on a consistent basis. That's kind of what was missing last year. And it's just more killer instinct. So it's just more reason for me to be bullish on Cantlay here. And again, we compare him to Xander Schauffele, his peer. You're getting him at like double the odds most weeks. Like it's too tempting to resist right now.
Yeah, it really is. And in 61, it really could have been 59. He missed two what I'd call make-will putts. Now, granted, his strokes gained putting for the day was fantastic. He made some long ones. You can't shoot 61 to do that. What I love about Cantlay is since the Memorial win, when Jack Nicklaus came out and he said to him, he's like, look, you got to learn to close a little bit better. He almost coughed that one up. He has put himself into position on Sunday to really become one of the most feared players on that day. In fact, he put himself into contention at the Masters 2 years ago when Tiger won with this same thing with a really roaring Sunday. So I'm not really saying like the PGA Showdown contest. I'm just more saying if this guy's in the tournament, watch out for him. He's clearly learning to play on Sunday. And we know that that's only going to come into effect really when the majors come around. So keep an eye on Patrick Cantlay here this week. All right, let's talk about one more thing. I want to talk about Hawaii, guys. And we mentioned last week, trends are trends. Trends are meant to be broken. Sometimes they're silly, sometimes they're not. But with this event, there is undoubtedly a huge correlation between golfers that at least had one start in the Hawaii swing and played relatively well in their success here. Now, granted, that could be some recent form bias, obviously, but I got a list of 8 names that played at least once that were all in the top 20 here last week. Michael Thompson, Richie Wierenski, Abraham Ancer, Brendan Steele, Matt Jones, Chris Kirk, Tony Finau, Cam Davis, all showed some type of form in Hawaii. So do you think that moves into this week, or do you think it's a course-specific thing where it's a really easy course? They come over from the Sony Open, which is a relatively easy course again, and it's just a good translation. And it stops here, or do you think it continues?
It's always a mix. There's always a few guys who continue, but this one, you see a lot of guys who they maybe have not shown much. It's a dramatic course shift, right? Like we're going from, it's like Beauty and the Beast, man. I mean, it's well manicured, lower rough, the good weather spots generally, maybe get a little bit of wind, but like, they're just not dealing with much to like all the adversity you can handle, more variance with lies and stuff like that, Poa greens. I don't really buy into the recent form as much when I come in here. In fact, I definitely think you can get on players like better odds if you just you don't want to just cross off recent form altogether, but you take a little bit of a longer basket when you're looking, like maybe you look back over the last, 6 or 8 events rather than the last 3. That's how I've always approached, or I've always thought you should approach this. Guys coming in like Jason Day's come in here cold, played really well. John Rahm kind of done nothing and then grabbed his win. That's kind of what you see at Torrey Pines. So I'm not so much what these guys have done in the first 3 events. I'd like to see them make a start. I think that's important. I think getting a little bit of golf under is important. And we have seen guys come from overseas and not play well. I think we only have Rory to worry about there this week, and I'm not as concerned about it with Rory as the other guys. But for the most part, like I wouldn't worry too much about what we saw in the first 3 events. Just I would say, again, you're making a model or something, I'd dial it down a little bit over like the very recent form and maybe just go back a bit longer.
Yeah, I agree here. I think it's really a golf course thing for me. If to give my 2 cents on that question, the problem with PGA West and of course the La Quinta course is they're so easy. So golfers, even if they're missing the fairway, they're not totally in form with all of their clubs to the bag. They're going to have so many opportunities to score. This week, it's not going to be the same. If they miss the fairway, they're going to be a long way away from the hole, and they're going to be in 3-inch rough. I don't even know if there was rough last week. When I saw them land in that intermediate cut that was still green, it looks like fairway to me. So I think that obviously probably bumps up the scores and makes it a little bit easier to do so. So in any case, all right, let's go on to our DFS review here, where we go over some of the highlights from last week. And we always start off with the top 5 values and a check in on how the chalk did. So no surprise, Siwoo Kim, the winner, 17.4x value, 143 points scored. Wow, tremendous amount. A little bit less than Andrew Landry from the year before. But that's, again, because we didn't have La Quinta in there. So a couple of other guys, Cam Davis up there, Michael Thompson, I mentioned. Ryan Armour, it's an interesting one. Keeping an eye on him. Doug Gim, Chase Seifert, Rory Sabatini, and Francesco Molinari with a top 10 value. So 2 guys I want to talk about there. Doug Gim, very frustrating for me. Obviously, I've been top 10 in betting this guy for, probably 30 events. I stopped doing it. Of course it happened. I should have let everybody know that I wasn't going to do it this week. And of course it pays off for his first ever top 10 on the PGA Tour. Comes to this week, actually, having some decent form here as well. Had a chance a couple of years ago. And Francesco Molinari, that's maybe the one I want to focus on for a little bit more than Doug Gim. Here's a guy that obviously was a major winner recently. Totally lost year last year. And I mean completely lost. Made maybe 2 cuts all year. All of a sudden, he's back in the top 10. So, Jeff, what do you make of those 2 guys? You can pick either one you want to chat about first.
Yeah, Molinari's the most interesting. I mean, it was tempting to take a flyer on him last week for me. I again, didn't end up doing so, but a player who is definitely on the radar for me. And realistically, like, we've had the year off for Molinari, and you can kind of give him a bit of a mulligan for it. We had the COVID situation and stuff like that. So to me, that's the player that really perks up. I mean, this is a player, especially coming into like harder courses and majors and bigger events. I think you really just got to start considering him, because he's just so consistent tee to green when he's on like this. And I think you're going to still have negative sentiment on him for a while, where players probably just don't want to take a shot. So he's interesting to me. Doug Gim was frustrating as well for me, just seeing him drain all the putts. I talked about him. I think it was at the Sony. So still a player I definitely think you should keep an eye on for DFS. Makes a lot of birdies. But, Molinari for me, especially with the bigger events we have coming up, that's a player that, it was a significant performance to see him come out, especially in like the first start of 2021. It's like, okay, maybe this guy has like taken the offseason and figured it out. I guess we're going to find out this week, because this one will really put him to the test.
Yeah, he did move to California too. So,
okay.
Molinari did.
So there you go.
Yep, Molinari did. Over the pandemic, moved his entire family out to California, the LA area. So this little stretch for him, obviously being pretty close to home the whole time, will certainly be important. So a check in on the chalk here. A little bit of a mixed bag. 3 top 5s with Patrick Cantlay, Tony Finau, and Abe Answer all securing it, all in the top 10 ownership. But then you had 5 missed cuts with golfers like Patrick Reed, Scotty Scheffler missing the cut, Sam Burns, Sepp Straka, Matthew Wolff. Wolff made the cut. Sorry, Russell Henley missed it. So kind of a mixed bag there, Jeff. If you were able to fade Reed and Scheffler, you really had a leg up, because if you faded Reed and Scheffler, it's likely you had a Cantlay, a Finau, or an Answer in your lineup. Yeah,
absolutely. Scheffler was even more chalky than I think we had him projected to be. It was weird. I mean, I just didn't feel like, I thought enough people would drift down to like Matthew Wolff or get Finau in there, or just, decide to pivot off him. But that was one of the more chalky stars like we've ever seen. When it was a pretty big bust. So, getting him up, and like you said, Reed was up there too. I was actually a little bit surprised on the ownership of Reed, but people are really into playing him right now. He's been obviously consistent, and he's a former winner, so maybe I shouldn't have been so surprised. But Scheffler, one of the bigger chalk, kind of just everyone piling in on him scenes we've seen in a while. So I thought he was at least going to make the weekend. He was trying, like, I wasn't even really worried about it on Friday, and then he just
couldn't make a putt.
He wasn't. Yeah, he could not make a putt. He didn't play great either. I mean,
his wedges were terrible too.
Wedges were terrible. He's very consistent off the tee. That part of the game isn't there, but there's still for some refinement there with Scheffler. Short game's there, couldn't make a putt, but he's got to get those wedges dialed in, I think, to compete. It probably won't take him too long, but could be a good bounce back spot for him here too. He's got short game, he's got off the tee, so I'm not going to cross him off my list. But yeah, that was a little surprising for me to see him up there. He's a guy that, similar to Colin Morikawa, if you follow their shot trails, you can figure out where they are really easily in the tournament. And right off the bat, Scheffler was hitting fairways, like you said, looked really good off the tee, but early on, he couldn't put his
140-yard shots inside of 20 feet. Normally, when you can't do that, you're not going to score, especially out at PGA West. So let's go on to our optimal lineup review here. I quickly run through the optimal. And for the first time in a while, Jeff, we had 50,000, actually all salary used. It was Pat Cantlay, Abraham Ancer, Siwoo Kim, obvious there, Cam Davis, Michael Thompson, and to add injury to insult, of course, Doug Ghim there at 6,800. So I think the big surprise to me here, besides Ghim, was how balanced of a lineup it actually really was. I mean, when you're looking to make GPP lineups, I mean, the total ownership on this was about 60%, used all the salary. I mean, just obviously it ended up being not too out of the ordinary for this, I guess is what I wanted to say. And that's not something we typically see.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Typically we got like 45,000 as the winning optimal lineup, I guess is what I meant to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think Cantlay being up there and really producing obviously probably led to this kind of lineup as well. Whenever you have like the top owned player, I mean, it's more likely we're going to see like a full ownership. But then you also had Ancer ending with like a birdie streak and Siwoo being 82. Like it was an event. You don't want to, there were players up there, like Michael Thompson was up there and guys like that, but it was where like the stars and the people who were supposed to play well kind of came and actually performed for once. So yeah, I mean, it just ended up like this. I mean, it's a super balanced lineup. You look at it and I mean, you easily, it's just like one guy from each tier basically. And then you're going like two value guys. It's incredibly balanced lineup for what we usually see for an optimal. So yeah, kind of funny how it worked out that way. But I think the main catalyst of this is when you have the top ranked guy like Cantlay actually produce, beat like most of the guys in his range or pretty much every guy in the top range, then this is you're more likely to get this kind of more balanced lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Let's head on to the actual winning lineup. And for all of you single entry or single bullet players, let it be known you could have won $200,000 doing it last week. Not everybody that puts in 150 lineup wins. And last week it was the single bullet people that ended up coming away victorious for the 200K. It was Pat Cantlay, Siwoo Kim, no surprise there. Cam Davis also in there. So 3 from the optimal. But then it threw in Brian Harman, Chris Kirk, and Brendan Steele. It used up all the 50,000 salary. It had 74% ownership, just one lineup. I mean, Jeff, we talk about it a lot. 70 to 80% is our target when we're making GPP lines.
Yeah.
It was well balanced. Nobody under 7,300. I am a little surprised that this ended up winning, only having 3 guys in the top 10. But Brian Harman, again, showing that, he can put up a ton of points over 100. And Chris Kirk and Brendan Steele, that's all they needed. 2 top 25s, and it got it done.
It is. Yeah, you're right. It is a little interesting, especially with 2 guys like under 90 there. But Siwoo and Cantlay just tore it. And Cam Davis. I mean, those guys just blew away. Even for where they finished. I mean, those are massive point totals. Massive so numbers. I think there was just such a big gap between like the highest guys and the second guys that if you had the right combo, if you basically had those 3 guys, then you didn't need necessarily to nail the other ones as much. So yeah, I was a little surprised like Ghim isn't in here or something like that. But I mean, again, very similar to the optimal, obviously, just off a couple guys. So
yep, totally agree. All right, let's move on to our lineups here. Note before we do our lineups, my bad. We go into our pro review, kind of build up to how we did personally. So let's start off with our own Alex Awesemo Baker, who looked like he upped his percentages on his top end guys. I don't know, maybe he was listening to our show where I suggested maybe he'd do that, or it's just how it ended up being here this week. But I will have to ask him about one thing. And that's that he played 46% Brooks Koepka, a guy that he totally hates. I'll have to ask him about that. Maybe he just liked the leverage. But 61% on Tony Finau, 28% Patrick Reed, 21% Denny McCarthy was kind of his 4 core. He had Redmond, Ancer also in there as well. 4 golfers over 20%, 2 only in the top 10, 5 missed cuts. Total golfers 84, so moving down a little bit. 670th was his top. Not a great showing, obviously, when he didn't have Cantlay or Siwoo Kim in the top. going to be tough for him to have a profitable week in the GPP. But I can tell you, he came fourth in the $500 in the signature hole. So looks like, again, the higher dollar stuff, more limited entries is working for Alex. So definitely take a look at that if you're looking at single entry stuff. And for me, I did find myself to Patrick Cantlay and both Siwoo Kim in my top 5 owned, but I had Patrick Reed and Scotty Scheffler in there as well. I did have a profitable week. I returned about 30% in the GPPs, cashed in my one lineup, which we'll talk about in a second. So it was a good week for me, Jeff, but I felt like since I had so much Cantlay and Kim, I felt like it was my shot. I just couldn't put it together with the other guys.
It definitely, yeah, just looking at it, it looks like you were probably pretty close last week. If you had, somehow gotten off a little bit of Scheffler or Reed, maybe you mix in a couple more lineups, 6-6, you probably get there. So that's a nice build, man. I think going over on Cantlay was smart. Clearly the best player in the world probably wasn't getting enough respect from people just in terms of ownership this week, I think. Again, people think, Cantlay's the highest ranked player in the field. He's the highest owned, but Finau's behind him, Koepka. I felt like that just kept his ownership down. People just weren't respecting him as the highest salary player. So I think that was sharp. I think both you and Alex going overweight on Finau probably sharp too. Again, it was just an ownership thing. And I'm going to kind of assume that's why Alex went to Koepka, but
yep,
I don't know. Maybe he has another reason. I know looking at the projections last week, I don't think we had Koepka massively up there. I could be wrong on that. I can't remember, so don't quote me on that. Scheffler was rating out well, though, so it was really hard to get off him. I mean, I thought about getting off him for a Sungjae Im pivot or something like that, but in my single entry, as you'll see, we'll go over, but I didn't get there either, so I'm not really one to talk, but yeah, otherwise, man, that is a nice group of players you got up there. Just sans obviously the Scheffler bomb and Reed.
And the Reed bomb.
Reed, you're basically average on. It was just actually even Scheffler, you were below weight on.
Yep.
Realistically, right? So you can't even follow yourself. It just didn't quite get the mix.
Yeah, I think maybe the biggest mistake for me was, and these golfers are very similar, I think, kind of by the way they look, they're both kind of tall, a little lanky, can drive the ball super far. It's Sam Burns and Cam Davis. If I had swapped those ownerships,
right,
I think I really would have been there. Now, the one thing I wanted to mention that I did a little bit differently this week than I normally do is I had my core, as you can see, 8 golfers that I did above 20%, maybe 1 or 2 higher than I normally do. But after that, what I did was I had nobody higher than 10% or 11%. I had a lot of guys in that range. Because what happened the previous week was I had I had 17% Will Gordon, 17% Russell Knox, and those guys got crushed. They both missed the cut out at Sony. So what I did this week was I pared it back. I think that maybe helped a little bit of my overall return. But of course, when you hit on those guys, had I played Cam Davis at the 17%, it might have been better. Cam Davis was one of those guys at 10%. So, all right, let's go on to the guys that actually did well last week in the GPP format and how they got it done. Start off with the Fantasy Bros, who won the contest last week, the 200K. He bounced back another top 20, so a good showing from him. Tony Finau and Cantlay at 36%. Scotty Scheffler at 30%, so he couldn't avoid him. But he did have Cam Davis at 24%. Answer 22, Siwoo Kim 21. Still ended up with 3 missed cuts in his top, but when you have, of course, Siwoo Kim, Abe Answer, Patrick Cantlay, Tony Finau up there, you're going to have a chance. And then the top GPP guy, RJ Rat, he came in second. He also had Siwoo Kim at 48%. We talk about this a lot, Jeff. If you can get the winner in 50% of your lineups and the winner's only 13 projected owned, I mean, you're going to have a chance to win. I don't really think we need to say much more about him, obviously, when you have 50% of the winner.
Yeah, no, I mean, and look, it's a strategy. I don't mind. I mean, these big GPPs, it's go big or go home. So I think Siwoo Kim is a guy we know has a ton of talent. He's obviously been a pretty good closer over his career. He already had 2 wins before this week at a very young age. So you knew at some point it was going to get done again. I don't mind it. I really don't. I like to take that approach, especially with guys in that range who are going a little bit under-owned. You feel strong about. So kudos to him. But, realistically that and then going a little bit overweight on Finau was a good call, obviously fading the Scheffler chalk and then getting Cam Davis in there, man. I mean, he just made the right calls on the right player. It obviously started with Siwoo, but, he needed to have Davis in there as well. So to finish it off.
Yeah, so if you are new to the MME game, you're trying it out, say something in the mini max or something like that, the Fantasy Bros has built 52 golfers with the top percentage of 36%. I think that's a really standard build. For people, again, just getting into it, that's where I'd recommend them go. I think going the Alex's route where he's got like 84 players, I think that really requires a lot of fine tuning. So, going through lineups and making sure you only have 2, 3, 4% of some of those bombs. Mm-hmm. And then there's, of course, the aggressive side with the RJ Rat. He only had 38 golfers in his pool. Again, like we just mentioned, 50% of that top guy. A little bit more aggressive, I'd consider that. So, again, just wanted to make note of those. Aggressive. Yeah, those players that are maybe just coming into the MME game, a good difference in how you can see the pros do it. A lot of different 38 players, 84 players. There's no right or wrong way as long as you can get it done. That's the most important thing.
And just realize, you're upping the variance when you take smaller groups of players and you're going 48% on a guy like Siwoo Kim, who's only 13% owned. So it's more variance, but when you do hit, you do have give yourself a better shot at the big week, obviously. So all works out, to however you're adjusting it. It's gonna give you different sort of timelines, so to speak, I guess, on how you're profiting.
For sure. All right, let's go into our lineups and see how we did this week, at least in our single entry stuff. For me, I always put out my highest dollar lineup. So this week I did not avoid the Scotty Scheffler bomb, sadly. But I did slide into the cash with the Siwoo Kim bogey-free round and his all-rounds under. He got 8.5 points on that last hole, and it got me just enough to slide into the cash. I love it. But what I hate is I had made one late switch that cost me. I was high on both Doc Redman and Cam Davis. I was high on both Sam Burns and Brian Harman. I decided to go with Burns and Redman here instead of Harman and Davis. That cost me a couple $1,000s there, that switch. I just felt maybe a little bit safer or maybe not even safer, maybe more upside with the Burns Redman, because Harman, we know, had been playing great. But obviously I was just totally wrong in that. Happy to slide into the min cash there. Just goes to show you though, Jeff, in a week that there's 6 of 6, 5%, you're not out of the game if you can get 2 top 5s in a 4 of 6.
No, for sure, man. I mean, I've cashed with winners with 3 of 6 before at various tournaments with like bad cut rates like we saw this week. So it can happen. And I mean, look, you're going to see mine show up on next. I had 5 of 6 golfers. I bubbled. It was a smaller buy-in, but I will have to see what the point totals were. But actually, some similar players. I had Answer and Redmond in mine as well. I just didn't land on Siwoo this week, and I ate the Scheffler chalk as well. So I went down there, but. My problem was I also used Zach Johnson to pair with Redmond. So I had 2 golfers who just did nothing on the weekend, like absolutely nothing. So that was frustrating to watch, especially because of who I used with them. Like they were actually like, I had 3 guys who were pretty good producers, but the rest of them. But this one, it's very similar to what I built. So I mean,
let's slide into that. No, I think it's a good transition. Let's slide into that. We both found ourselves on Redmond again. He had played superbly on these easy tracks recently. So no surprise to see us go into there. The one maybe a little bit different between our lineups is you got to Paul Casey. Now that was an absolute great. I wish I had talked to you more about that because he ended up being a really nice pivot. 95 points at 8,700 really could have helped you pretty much anywhere. If Zach Johnson or Doc Redman could have done literally anything besides what they did on the weekend, you would have had a pretty good lineup even with 5 of 6.
No, for sure.
Saw you were all over Siwoo Kim in other places. Did he just not find this lineup? You wanted to go a little bit more up top with Answer Scheffler?
Yeah, I kind of made like a late scratch on Siwoo. It was just a boneheaded decision, but and I didn't get it. I just basically had no Siwoo this week. So it was a little bit rough, but Casey was, to me, just a perfect low and pivot. I mean, 8,700 for Paul Casey in a weaker field. It just seemed a little like I think like he was coming in cold, but nobody wanted to play him. He was T21 here last year. Casey plays in the desert a ton. Like he's strokes gain approach maestro. I had no problem taking him at like well under 10% owned. So that one was like, he was always on my radar for GPP builds. And then, Byung-Hun An was the other guy. I had him and John Huff in there, and I just decided to go with, I knew Scheffler was going to be up there on a new Answer. So when I was building this lineup, I said, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to go with An as a bit of a lower owned guy. Really wish I had just stayed on like John Huh and then taken the lower ownership on a Sung J M, because I probably could have gotten up there or even gone down to Doug Gim and gone to him. That's what I was debating about. That's what really made this lineup good. But realistically, ZJ and Redmond holding me back here. We're never going to get me that high up. So nice. I like the calls I made on Casey and Ann, but just wasn't going to get there with the way the chalk performed for me.
Yeah, without Seaward, can't lay, especially scoring as many points as they did. Even Davis, for that matter, he was like 13 or 14% owned. Yeah. So makes sense. Well, if you do want our picks, it's a great time to tell you about a couple of things going on here at Awesemo. We have, first off, with the NFL, taking a week off, NHL and NBA definitely going to be taking a more of a front seat. And today, rankings from Awesemo are free for both sports, NHL and NBA. And listen, if you're ready to join and get access to all of the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there, you're going to get an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. This includes access to all of our premium content and tools. But listen, if you just want to come join both Jeff and I and Ben on the PGA premium side, well, look at our weekly packages. $8.95 for the full one, $2.95 for the express packages. So stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. And let's talk about a little of those plays, a couple of them that we're going to have at the Farmers Insurance. As we move into this week, again, we mentioned right at the top of the show, it's probably one of the best weeks, or at least the highest number of prizes waiting for us in the DFS pool. So, and a great field as well. It's a 2-course rotation here, north and south at Torrey Pines Municipal Golf Course. It will play, at least the South Course will play as one of the toughest tests, at least that we've had this year. And it always ranks in the top 10 hardest we have pretty much every single year. You're only going to hit the fairway about 55% of the time, Jeff. So does that make you bring more people into play, or does that make you bring less people into play when we know something like that?
Well, it's, driving distance definitely is a thing this week. I mean, it's one of those US Open style venues where, you should be giving credit to like strokes gained off the tee and players who are just consistent. I don't necessarily look at like driving accuracy or anything like that, but I just want players who are strong off the tee. So if they're not getting it in the fairway a ton, then they're getting it out there, right? They're getting it closer to the hole. Hitting it out of the rough isn't going to be as big a deal from them. Instead of 220, they're 180 or something like that, right? So because like you said, the fairways are still hard to hit. You're still going to miss the fairway, even if you're a consistent hitter. There's just tough tee balls here. I mean, the fairways are guaranteed for no one, right? Unless you hit perfect drives. So strokes gained off the tee here is always something I tend to emphasize. It's generally treated me well doing that, and it's something I'll probably continue to do that. But that being said, there's a lot of other variables at this course. I mean, we saw Mark Leishman light it up, gained 8 strokes putting over the week.
And whenever you do that, I hope that they're doing good, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, Brant Snedeker's won here before too. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be great off the tee. And Leishman missed like every fairway in the final round here last year too. So there's various ways of getting it done. I tend to really emphasize the strokes gained off the tee guys and, just try and mix it in with guys who are good putters. So if I'm going to take a GPP shot on a guy, it's someone who I think could get around the greens, have a hot weak putting, because that's the other thing. The field generally just putts terribly here. Like you'll see a ton of players just have horrible putting weeks, but it'll almost be mitigated because everyone's going to putt poorly. So if you do get a guy putting really well, he can really make up a lot of ground this week, it feels like, just with the putter. So
yeah, no, I totally agree. There's a couple of guys that I want to chat about here in a little bit. Before we do, I'll just go over a couple of other things. We're going to hit about 2/3 of the greens. Even though we're going to miss the fairway about half the time, we're still going to hit a lot of greens. They are relatively small. The North Course is going to play significantly easier. It's about a shot under par for the first 2 days. Of course, we're going to rotate them. And the South Course, it's going to play probably a shot over par. Should have a cut right around even par, maybe +1. Of course, it looks like weather could be a problem, certainly for the guys playing in the Monday qualifier today. It is a big problem. It's cold, it's windy, and it's rainy there. I think this is supposed to blow out by midweek, though, if I checked. Again, this is weather. I'm not trying to be a weather tout right now. But you just mentioned Brant Snedeker.
Yeah.
We remember his win. I mean, it was blowing 45 mile an hour on Sunday, and he got it done. So it can happen here at Torrey Pines, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it is supposed to be like low 60s, high 50s all week. So it's going to be cold. I think the first 2 days, too, are supposed to be worse than the last two. Like the last 2 days is supposed to be at least calmer with a bit of sun. But like we might even get like a rain out day on Friday. So it's going to be – I think the scoring is going to be a lot higher this year.
Yeah, for sure. And 24 of the world's top 50, the newest update, it might be 25, are here to play. So definitely a incredibly strong field. We got 3 in the top 10. Not bad. Again, a pretty strong field for all intents. So first want to let you guys know about the little giveaway we got going on our Awesemo_com Twitter handle. Check out the pinned tweet on that handle there to enter our NBA giveaway to win a month of Awesemo Plus. Hey, that's pretty good. Just follow the instructions and tweet the name of any player in the NBA. That's right, any player. And if they score a basket, you have a chance to win. That's it. Simple. 2 random winners will be selected. Make sure you follow our Awesemo_com Instagram handle as well for our giveaway over there, where I'm going to guess your chances are going to be a little bit better than on Twitter. So make sure you are following us over there. Okay, let's go into our first clicks here at Torrey Pines. And again, such a strong field. We'll have a lot to talk about. We'll first do our first clicks, then we'll go into our DFS preview, which literally they dropped salaries at 2:27 and we came on the air at 3:30. So maybe not a ton of time for Jeff and I to take a look. But first guy I want to talk about, when we talk about values, normally I go to the top 20. And the first one that I see as maybe even like 13 or 14 on the board, this is a guy that I just got mad at Alex for playing so much last week, but here I am talking about him, and it's Brooks Koepka. He's 2-1 on a top 20 this week. Again, I'm just seeing value there. He was trending towards playing pretty well. He is 4 under. He was 4 under. First of all, he shot even on the first day. Was 4 under on the second day, looking like he was going to make the cut. Came to the, I think, 13th hole, Jeff, and plunked one in the water. Just totally snap hooked one left into the water, made double, triple, something like that, and never recovered. But I think his form is close to there. It didn't look as bad as I thought it would. And on this course, he's not going to lose that many strokes. He's not going to hit it in the water. There's not really that many chances to do it. So I think top 20, I think it's a decent bounce back for Brooks Koepka here this week.
Yeah. For me, and like we can stay in that range for a sec, because for me, it'd be really close. The other player I consider in the top 20 for that range would be Jason Day. If Day plays anything good here, he's going to top 20. Like, he just does that. He was in no good form coming in cold last year. He finished T16. Like, Day at this course is, you don't want to say he's an automatic, but again, if he starts out okay, if he makes the weekend, good God, that's a really good number on a top 20 for Jason Day. So I completely agree with the Koepka call. It reminds me of last year. Remember when we sometimes like Dustin Johnson like missed the cut, and then he was like plus 2,500 at the Travelers, and then he won. Webb Simpson, same kind of thing. Then he went like this. This reminds me of the spot a little bit for Brooks Koepka. I'm probably going to get some outright exposure here because this line is, to me, I was not expecting like to see plus 3,000 or bigger on Brooks Koepka today, but that is what we're getting. So I'll be getting some exposure some way. I think the top 20 call is actually really smart too. Again, if you're into betting like top 20s or whatever, that is definitely something I take. It'd be really close between him and Day. Maybe do both, and I don't know, but
you only need one there to get through. Yeah,
depending on how you organize your card, right? I don't know
exactly.
That's probably not something I'm going to do, but both those guys stand out to me as good values for top 20 market in the top tier, anyways. 100%.
Yeah, and you just mentioned, Koepka above plus 3,000. I'm looking at, plus 3650 or 36.5 to 1 to win. A great tool, though, to make sure you are getting the best line is check out our odds shopper tool. Don't make a bet without shopping for the best odds first. Betting lines can change by the minute and can vary greatly depending on the book you are using. We just mentioned about a 6.5 to 1 difference there just on Brooks Koepka. So that's why it's important to use the Awesemo Odds Shopper tool to find the best line available on the golfer you are betting on and give you that edge you need to beat the house. Head on over to oddsshopper.awesemo.com where we compile the best bets available for every golfer updated in real time. Sign up for free today to track your bets and receive alerts.
The Odds Shopper tool, guys, too. Sorry, I'll cut you off.
No, go ahead. No, go for it.
It's like, honestly, if you can get on the books that are on the Odds Shoppers, you should be going. It's a great tool. It looks great. You can use it for all the different sports, not just golf. So it's so good. It gives you exactly like what's live and stuff. So yeah, definitely check that. Again, it's free. So yeah, you can find it at the top of the Awesemo page. So it's a great tool they made out there.
Sure. And don't forget, if you're just coming in, I appreciate you guys joining us here on Monday afternoon. Make sure you give us a like and let us know that we're doing the right things, or give us a dislike if you really don't like the stuff that we're pitching. Of course, we like to hear all of the feedback here at Awesemo. So, of course, make sure you subscribe as well if you're not already doing that. So, continuing on, Brooks Koepka 36.5 to 1 to win. when I saw that line being the same as Mark Leishman, that's what kind of really got me interesting. Now I think it's moved just a little bit. Mark Leishman's a little higher, but anybody else on the outrights before I give you one more top 20 that I have ironed out? Anybody on the outrights that you've clicked here early in the morning, or early in the week, I should say, not in the morning?
So I'm really looking in that like above 25 range to like 40 range. I mentioned Koepka already. He's going to be in there for interest, but Hideki and Matt Wolff, I got to get some exposure to Matt Wolff here, like West Coast guy, TPC Harding Park. Again, so he started slow last week. Like, I just don't care. I mean, he shot 76 here in the opening round, still finished T21. This is just such a good course for him with the strokes gained off the tee. He's still trending fine with his approaches. He was fine last week. He's like third in over the last 50 rounds in his strokes gained approach. He's kind of the guy that I'm saying, take a longer term approach. Don't worry too much about like he hasn't had like a second place or anything in a while. To me, I just feel like this number on Matt Wolff at this event, you should be betting it every time he's this number. So I'm going to start by doing that. And Hideki was killing the ball at the Sony. Hideki's played really well. And the one thing, I was surprised when I looked this up this morning, dude's a positive putter on Poa greens over the last 50 rounds. Like, it is a massive split between Hideki putting on Poa right now and Hideki putting on Bermuda. He putted well, and I forgot about this, but he putted well at the BMW Championships at Olympia Fields too. So I'm going to roll with that. I think this is an interesting spot here for Hideki. We've seen guys sort of do well at Phoenix and then also do well at the Farmers, guys like Finau and stuff like that. So I'm going to roll with this. I'm going to say that Hideki, that's a good number. You should be looking at it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know our chat just brought up that Matt Wolff is working on putting in a cut in his game with George Gankis. A good piece of information there from our chat. That's why I love it. They are well informed. And what that can do, simply when a golfer is trying to add a element to his game, if he's trying to work on it in tournament, definitely can hurt the results a little bit. There's no doubt about it. But if you can't learn the golf shot in tournament, you're not going to be able to use it. And certainly a little left to right cut off of the tee is much more controllable than just trying to hit it as far as he can, which we know Wolff can do. He can hit it with the best of them in furthest, maybe, just behind Bryson DeChambeau and Cam Champ in terms of driving distance on tour.
If he's got a little bit of issue off the tee, it's going to show up more at a venue like TPC Stadium than it is here. Like he's hitting it into the water in TPC Stadium. Here, he's still down the fairway. He might be in the rough, but like I said, it just benefits the bigger hitters so much at Torrey Pines. So I'm not as worried about it this week. But it's a good point. Absolutely, it's great. Thanks for bringing it up.
So you mentioned Jason Day kind of being a lock here almost, a two-time winner. He's got just really good results. He's the type of player you would want here. Long driver, great with the short game, good putter, maybe not great with his irons all the time. And I found a guy that made the cut last week, probably should have played better, finished better, and was a hot take from our own Ben Raza, and it's Wyndham Clark. He reminds me of I hate to use this analogy, a poor man's Jason Day. Extremely long off the tee, really good putter, good around the green, not so hot with the irons. But, Jeff, the irons looked pretty good last week. Decent enough, at least. Not great, but decent enough. So 5-1 on the top 20. Is that a stretch on Clark? Should it be a little longer, or is that good value for you?
Look, I like Wyndham Clark. I'm a Wyndham Clark guy. I mean, I know we were on him a couple times over the fall. Didn't quite get there. They kind of big at the Shriners or something, but I'm fine with it, man. I mean, the guy can bomb it out there, great around the greens. And like you said, I mean, from a putting perspective, he is someone who could get hot around these greens, right? And kind of get you some kind of big week from there too. So I think Clark is a good setup, a good sort of, target for this kind of event. He was T35 here back in 2019. This will be his third time playing it. You like to see that. I don't have his round by round history, but the approach game for Wyndham Clark has been improving like since the fall, and that's why he's been putting up better results. I'm not sure if it was a club change or not, if he's still with PXG. I'm not sure if he's still with them or not, but it might have been.
Clark? Yeah, he was with PXG. I actually don't know if they
I'm not sure if he switched or not, if that's why. But anyways, his approach game has been improving, and he's just been improving. So I like it, man. I absolutely like that call. I think that's the kind of player you want to target here. Good off the tee, consistent off the tee, can handle these greens, because another similar player, and this will just be a segue into a guy I always target at this event, but it's Patrick Rogers. Really consistent, big off the tee, can absolutely light up the greens when he's on. If his approach game has any consistency this week, he'll probably finish in the top 20 because he's done that 2 of the last 4 years. You can get him at plus 1,600 plus top 10 on DK Sportsbook. I'll see if I can find him quickly for a top 20, but he's probably a little bit bigger than Clark, just judging by the odds. So where are you? Yeah, 750 for Patrick Rouslin top 20. I'll be hitting that.
I like that one. All right, let's move into our opening DFS thoughts, and certainly a lot to talk about. Obviously, the first 2 top guys, there's already a bit of chatter that I think we need to discuss. And first, it's obviously pretty clear if you were following last week, which I'm sure most of you were, Jon Rahm had to withdraw to a sore back. It was stated throughout the little rumorville of the golf world that it was actually done in the gym. It wasn't just like a playing too much golf thing. It's like he actually maybe heard it in the gym. And before I even give you a chance to talk about that, I'm going to mention that there was a report that Rory tweaked his back on Friday out in Abu Dhabi. Now, granted, he still ended up coming in second in the event. Ty Hatton had a much better Sunday, but top 2 guys have a tweak in their back. Maybe that lowers ownership. I don't know, but are you nervous about either? And if so, what are you going to do about it?
So,
yeah, it's a tough one because
it's a tough one, man. I am probably more prone to fade Rory here because of the fact it's coming over from Abu Dhabi. And I think I even said this on the show. Maybe I'm not as concerned with Rory about it as other players. It's Rory. He's flying high. Like, who cares? But we've just never seen, we've seen Dustin Johnson do this. Play, come over, suck. Ricky, play, come over, suck. It's a tough go to go from playing over there for whatever reason to playing Torrey Pines. In my opinion, part of it is just the difference in course, and the time zone probably doesn't help, but I've done this for 5 or 6 years. I swear, Jason, nobody ever makes this transition well over to Torrey Pines from Abu Dhabi. And I ain't going to start doing it with Rory when he's got a back tweak possibility. So I would be much more inclined to go on Rahm. It's also the younger of the 2. It sounds very precautionary with him. And Rahm's record at Torrey Pines, that's the other thing. Like, it's phenomenal. So
it's incredible.
Maybe the answer is just to fade both these guys. We're going to have a lower scoring DK week anyways and going more balanced. I could definitely see myself doing that. But of the top 2, I'd be much more inclined to fade Rory here. It just never works out for these guys who start over in Abu Dhabi. Never.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up. Now, here's my next question on Jon Rahm. Let's say he was just fine. It was really precautionary. Comes here this week and wins. Okay, so it's a 2-part question. Let's say he wins, right? And his odds to win this week are, something like 8 to 1 or 7 to 1 this week. I think something like that. Let me get the exact one here. Yeah, 7 to 1. Let's say he wins, right? Are you looking at the U.S. Open odds prior to the event going off that are sitting at 11 to 1, same golf course? Or do you think you'd rather go for he doesn't play well and will get it longer after this week? That's when I'd want to jump on it.
I think probably if I'm going to jump, this is actually great because I wanted to bring this up and I forgot. So I'm glad you brought it up. You should be looking, if you're interested in the US Open futures, you got to look at them before this event goes off.
Yep.
I don't think Rahm I would necessarily worry about, although it definitely could happen. But realistically, like the odds switch on Rahm, like, okay, he'd probably go to favorite, maybe like 8 or 9 to 1, but his odds aren't going to get cut in half necessarily, right?
Because it's US Open, yep.
Yeah, because it's US Open. He's still got Dustin's still number 1 player, yada, yada. But you could definitely do that. I would be more inclined to look higher in the odds for guys. Like I'm looking at Matt Wolff. You can get him at 50 to 1 or better. I don't think Matt Wolff's going to go off at 50 to 1 for the US Open. If you had to ask me right now, I think there's a good chance you will see someone like his odds get cut possibly in half. So I'm more worried about it for guys in that mid-range who are looking juicy right now. Maybe like a Woodland is another example. I don't know. I'm not really like that bullish on Woodland, but maybe Bubba. I don't know. Maybe Bubba finishes like second here or something. Someone like that, right? Other than Rahm. But it's a great point you made up. If you are interested in betting Rahm for this US Open, and it makes sense. He's won here once already, almost won last year. Yep. Then maybe sprinkling a little bit now isn't a bad idea. Like maybe putting in like half a bet or something. It's not something I'm going to do because 12 to 1, like I'll just ride it out. I mean, if I'm generally for futures too, I'm targeting guys at bigger odds and then I'll just take what comes to me at the favorites, but it's absolutely a great point to make. If you're really bullish on Rahm for the US Open, you might want to sprinkle a little bit now.
Yep. I totally agree. Okay, so let's continue on for our DK preview. Tony Finau, I brought up to you right before the show. Again, it was dropped at 227, so I had like a minute and a half to talk to you about it. But the thing that I mentioned to you right up top is Tony Finau priced above Xander Schauffele.
Right.
Found that to be interesting. I think that may lead to lower ownership on Tony Finau. Is that something you want to explore? Or do you think maybe the T4 and another blunder on Sunday? I shouldn't even say blunder. He didn't play that bad. He just got outplayed yet again. Yeah. Are you willing to go back to him, or is that price just all too high for you?
No, I don't think it's too high. I think the thing about Finau too that's pretty heightened at this course, like there's just not many birdies this week, but with Finau, you know, it's just such a good setup for Tony Finau, and he's the leader in strokes gained total here over the last like 5 years. He's got multiple. I think he's got 4 top 10s here now. There's a reason for it. It's hard to make birdies here, but it's easier when you can pound it 350 yards down the fairway and reach all the you get around the greens and all the par fives. If you find the fairway on the long par fours, those are all of a sudden become birdie opportunities. He's just got a big advantage over the field here. And Xander, I like Xander, but my God, like this guy's burned me 3 times this event now. He's a San Diego kid, but something about this course, Jason, like I do not know what it is, but I think this is where Finau deserves to be. I hope the field stays off him a little bit, but I almost just want to start with after the Rahm Rory talk. I actually think it's okay. I mean, it sounds a little crazy, but to me, looking how this sets up, I don't really have a problem starting with Tony Finau this week. I think the setup is just so good for him. I think, we do have a strong field, but it's not that strong. Like after Rahm and Rory, is there really that big a difference between like even just Schauffele and Finau? I don't see it. And I think this course really neutralizes some of the advantages that Schauffele has over Finau anyways. So I think I'd be okay. I think you're also getting good value in the 9K range where you can afford a little bit more on Finau this week and still end up with a really good lineup. So
yeah, I would say I think I agree where the field gets its strength is kind of that middle section, right? Maybe it's not that top heavy with only 3 in the top 10, maybe 2 in the top 10. Obviously, the strongest events get 4 or 5 or all 10, of course, for the majors or for the players. But I think you're right. The meat of this comes in this 9K range, and it starts off with Harris English, who I mean, I've faded, forever, and maybe at the Sony Open, it semi paid off for me. But I'll tell you, this truly does not feel like a Harris English course to me. Am I wrong to say that? He's kind of more of a guy that you've followed a little bit than I have. That's for sure.
It is a little bit weird. Harris English he can still get it out there off the tee. And again, he's a very sort of, he's almost like Brant Snedeker light. Like he's like in between Jason Day and Brant Snedeker, and that maybe doesn't get it out there as far as like Jason Day, but he's just as good a scrambler, and he's one of the best pull putters in the world, quite frankly. He's just very good at handling these greens. So year in, year out, he's produced. He lost in a playoff here today in 2015, the 4-man playoff. I remember that event well, but
that's a good point.
Yeah, like he's got a good record here. He's got a very good record here. So I agree. Like it's not the ideal setup, but he can get around these long courses. We also, like, again, at the US Open, I mean, I would not really suspect that being a good event for Harris English, but top 5 there this year, it is strange to see. He can get around these long courses better than people realize. So it's an interesting spot for him at 9,800. I don't think he'll be super heavily owned because I think
about to say, yeah.
People see him there. They got Wolf at 9,100, Scheffler, Hovland down there, Koepka. I think English could be a really interesting play this week. You'll probably get him at really nice ownership. So, again, if you're starting balanced, maybe if you're going to cut out the guys in the top 10K and you want a more subtle, a more like just a little bit lower ownership guy to start with a balanced lineup, I think English is that guy. So.
Yeah, just looking at who's around him now. If we look back to the Sony Open, which I think is a better indication of ownership, he's one of the top price guys and still got the 20%, but there was nobody else really playing that was that exciting. So I think at 9,800 with Reed right above him, Sungjae Im right below him, and you mentioned obviously Wolf, Matsuyama, Scheffler way below him, I think that his ownership is going to be the lowest it's been in the last 4, 5, 6 tournaments. So if you do think he can get back to, say, that top 5 form, I think he could be a good pivot play. I'm not sure that I'm going to go there this week. I'll be honest with you. I just, Sungjae Im at 9,600. finally found his putter a little bit last week, had a chance to win, then just obviously faltered on the weekend. All right, let's go talk a little bit about the 8K section. Again, a lot of golfers here. We've got Fowler, who ended up having a good weekend as well. Then we got golfers like Cam Smith, super popular last time. Ryan Palmer's playing good golf. Adam Scott, if he has a good putting week, we know he can win in California. Then you got Willie Zalatoris, just kind of thrown in there at 8,100. It's his first start of the season. I think it's interesting because I think we're going to get really low ownership on him because of guys like Jason Day, Cam Smith, kind of soaking all that up. So thoughts on the 8K range here, Jeff, early on in the week?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You got Usti in there as well.
Yeah, Usti, I didn't even mention him. Yep.
Who again? I mean, like these are the kind of courses where Usti just hangs around. He's like Harris English light in a way, right? Like he'll just hang around it, and by the end, you're like, oh, I got a T7 from him. So I think he's in play for me. Day at 86, I'm sure he'll be heavily targeted. It makes sense. There's always the injury risk with Jason Day, but again, if he plays well, the top 20s are just flow here so easily for Jason Day. It's hard for me to say anything bad about it, but Zalatoris is interesting. Tee to green guys absolutely should be dominating here. I think he's got the right style of game to profit long-term. So, again, mentioned Wolf coming here on his debut, T21. I think Zalatoris is a good play there too. People mentioning Billy Ho, he was really kind of just putting the lights out at Sony Open. I don't mind it, but I think I'd be more inclined to go with like Zalatoris, especially if the ownership's lower. So I'm kind of hoping Billy Ho sucks in the ownership, and then I can get guys like Zalatoris and Usti at a bit lower ownership. That's probably where I'll be going. Again, it's not a birdie maker's course, so I just don't want to put too much emphasis on what I saw at the Sony and the Amex because it's going to be such a different event, especially with the weather. So I'm looking at guys. I'm treating this like a little bit like a major. I want the tee to green guys. I want Zalatoris. I want Usti. I might take a look at Cameron Davis. Probably won't play Cameron Champ, even though I do think it's a great setup for him long term. But he has looked really garbage in the first two starts. But again, like don't be shocked if he turns it around here. It just won't shock me at all. We see it every year. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this 8K range. And the only other guy I'll mention there, Bubba at 88. I like that.
Yeah, Bubba's interesting, 8,800. We haven't seen him in quite a while. Haven't seen him since the Masters where he came 57th. So an interesting play there. You mentioned Cam Champ. So there's a couple of Camerons there at 7,900 that I'll get to in a second. First, my thoughts quickly on the 8K range. Pretty much echoes the same thing as you. Horschel, very good off the tee in his first starts. The irons haven't quite been there. I think Will Zalatoris' tee to green game is better than Horschel's. Horschel a better putter, obviously. So whatever ends up winning out this week, whether it's putting or tee to green, probably have that winner in that matchup come from there as well. Now, going to the Camerons, I'll first start with Champ. So Champ started off his round. I think he got to 2 or 3 under. He was on the par 5, decided to lay up 130 yards out, staring down at the Nicklaus course. Threw up a 140-yard, 130-yard shot, tracking, hits the flag, spins back, goes in the water, and from there, he shot 10 over. So when something like that happens, and on a course or a tournament, Jeff, that we know minus 24 is going to be the winner, I think he just checked out. I think he's like, yeah, I'm not going to miss the cut. I'll see you in San Diego. No sense in me trying to. Now, I don't know if this is how golfers think. This is me sitting here as a PGA DFS guy saying, this is what it looked like. I saw the play, I saw the shot. I saw the attitude afterwards because he was on PGA Tour Live. And that's exactly what it looked like. It just looked like he didn't care after he did that. So that makes me more inclined to play him this week.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. That's what, and sometimes that's what you get at that pro-am event because it's 2 courses involved. It's just guys come in there. So I just don't want to put too much emphasis on the results there. Obviously, if the guy played good there, that's good. That's a good sign. It is still, but it is a very different event here. So I really like this event and setup for Champ as well. Another guy we saw play well at TPC Harding Park. So again, 100 lineups, I would definitely be getting some Champ exposure here.
Cam Davis, obviously same first name. Who would you pick out of those 2? Which Cam would you go with? One coming off of 3rd place, one coming off a miscut.
It's a really tough call because
that's a good one.
They're both long hitters. I think Champ is the better player long term, but like you don't want to discount Cam Davis and what he did last week. I would probably go with Champ. I honestly would. I'll go with the pedigree. I just feel like, it's been a slow start, but what have we really seen? We saw him at the Tournament of Champions a no-cut event where half the guys are on vacation and the stadium course. Like, I'll just take Champ over Davis because that's probably what I would do long-term. And like I said off the top, I'm just not going to buy in too much to the results last week. So it's risky. I think there's probably better arguments for taking Davis over Champ, but I would actually lean Champ here. I'll give him one more go.
One more go. Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, I think maybe a little bit weather dependent. Our producer behind the glass is in the area, Jordan, this week, and mentioned that it's not really that great there. So I think it may play a little bit of a factor. Another tough question for you. Maybe you do have a lean here, though. We saw two guys that had a terrible 2020 pop up and show up last week. One of them looked like he was healthy after coming back from an injury, and the other one, Francesco Molinari, seemed like he cared about golf again. And it has been a while since that. So the first guy I'm talking about, Gary Woodland. Second guy I want to talk about, Francesco Molinari. Do you have a lean? And if so, who is it?
So
another really tough question.
Woodland's got a great record at this course. Well, it's not great, but it's very good. And obviously he's got the win at the Pebble Beach on the West Coast too. I think Molinari again is like, I would take Molinari long-term, but I would like to get a little bit more info on and really what is going on with Gary Woodland. Like, is he completely over the injury? If he is, I would be more inclined to get on him here, but I just don't want to read too much into what was going on last week. So, Woodland looked fine there, but what if he comes to the big US Open event and it just kind of all crumbles apart at once? I think for this setup, because the thing is, Molinari is as big a gamble. So I would say Woodland, for considering the setup we have here, he was pretty consistent off the tee. If I'm buying into both these guys kind of turned the corner last week, I'll take the bigger hitter. I'll take the guy who's played here a little bit more and has better results. So I guess I'll lean on course history to make that decision. But both these guys definitely a little bit scary. Probably going to require a little bit more digging from me throughout the week. I would lean Woodland here, though. Realistically, the setup, all things considered.
Yeah, one more question on Woodland. Do you think that, first of all, everybody knows his talent that plays this game, obviously a major winner, US Open winner for that matter. Do you think that we missed the 3%, 7,700 Gary Woodland last week? Or do you think that we're going to get it again this week? That's what I'm maybe concerned about. We've got this guy that was injured, didn't look injured last week, coming in, looks to be really good value. Do we see 15% again, or are people not ready to buy in yet?
I mean, again, this is why you need to get the Awesemo weekly pass, and you can get the ownership projections from Alex, which are awesome, and they're useful to know this stuff by Wednesday. I would say, off the top of my head, I don't think we'll get 15%, but people in our industry start talking him up too much, not too much, just if they just start talking him up, I mean, he will get up there. So he's got the chance to be the chalk in this range. I feel like it's too deep with Davis, Champ, Connor's below him. Connor's definitely going to suck up some ownership, and even Kokrak and Burns down there. Even your boy Jordan Spieth going to get a couple percent. You'll tip the odds in his favor, but I think Woodland could end up being the chalkiest in this range. I just don't know if it's going to be so chalky where you have to be like, oh, well, I need to get off him now. So I'd be okay with like a 10% Gary Woodland. I wouldn't be okay with a 15 to 20% Gary Woodland. That's kind of how I guess I'm approaching it.
All right, here we go. It's that time of the show where I'll talk for 60 seconds about the 7,600 golfer, Jordan Spieth. And there was some reports and I've been waiting a couple of weeks to talk about this because it just wasn't pertinent before now. But there were some reports that he went to Butch Harmon. We just saw the success we've gotten out of Siwoo Kim after that switch. Here's what actually happened. Spieth went through a swing change with Cameron McCormick, his longtime coach, been his coach since he was a teenager. He brought Butch Harmon in for a consultation, a one-time consultation. Now, does that mean that Butch Harmon said to Jordan Spieth, it looks amazing, you're ready to win again? Probably not. But of course, we're not going to get the ins and outs of it. The fact that he just brought Butch Harmon in makes me a little excited. The fact that he did something different, Jeff, I needed that at least. I mean, I'm going to play him all this week. I don't know. I think it's an okay course for him because everyone else is going to miss the fairway. But until I see this guy hit at least 50% of his fairways on a tough course like this, I'm not going to have him in my $500 lineup, but I'm never not going to have him in any lineups. Are you intrigued by anything you've heard, or is it a full fade for you again this week?
It is intriguing to have Butch Harmon, I admit. At the same time, it's Torrey Pines. People write him off too easily at these courses. I will say that he's very good at obviously scrambling. And if the putter's going, I wrote up another guy this morning in Alex Noren at 7,400, but realistically, like if I like Alex Noren at this course, Spieth is like the better version of Alex Noren anyways, even when his off the tee game is killing him. So
yep.
I can't write him off. I think for a 1% owned GPP, the nice thing about Jordan Spieth, 5%, 6% owned, probably double the field, right? I don't think he's going to get up there. So I wouldn't write him off completely, but it's not necessarily someone I'm like looking to go overweight on. I think I'm okay waiting on Jordan Spieth. I know you'll want to be on him early, but my first impression would be no here. I just want to see what happens. If he comes in top 20 or T16, I'll be like, well, I'll kick myself next week a little bit, but I won't kick myself that much because I just don't think that he's necessarily close to getting himself in contention yet, which, that's when I really want to be on him. So we'll see.
Another guy that I want to talk about in this range, we'll end here in just a couple of minutes, but want to get your thoughts here. Last week, the 6 of 6 was about 3.6%. Then all of a sudden, after the second hole on Saturday, it became 2.5%. And that's because Charlie Hoffman, who was 8 under in the top 20, decided to withdraw. In fact, one of my top 3 lineups on FanDuel had Charlie Hoffman in it. It also had Siwoo Kim and Patrick Cantlay. It was probably looking to be my shot at winning, but Charlie Hoffman took it away. He's in the field this week, has 3 top 10 since 2011 here. So is this a full fade? Like the guy withdrew in the middle of an event. Why is he back playing? It's a full fade for me. I can't tolerate that. Why he's even here. But do you have another thought?
No, not really.
Shocked he's in the field, to be honest.
It's probably not that big a deal. Again, I mean, but at the same time, like I just don't know how you can withdraw in the middle of an event when you're actually in contention and then just come back the next week. I mean, must have been something, again, a spasm or something that just got dealt with. But boy, man, like that's rough. I mean, and to come back and now playing Torrey Pines in like cold weather, yeah, you've just got to think that it's probably just a freak thing. And, we do see this from golfers. They got to be cautious and stuff like that, but I don't want to play them. No, I have no
I think he had like 13 birdies and maybe even threw in an eagle there. So it's not like he was playing bad. He was going to help a GPP lineup for sure. That he played all 4 days. And
the thing about golfers like this, like it's a deep field. Like we already went over like names, but Grillo's there. Ortiz is playing well. Charles Howells makes the cut here. My boy Ben-Yan, who knows, but I don't really want to play Ben-Yan again this week. But, there's just too many other options there for me to be like, get too bullish on Charlie Hoffman, who does look like he's playing well, but I'll hit him up at the next event if he gets through this one and just, take the risk off the table, so to speak here.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and it's probably not too far out there that he doesn't play this week. I just think we got a withdrawal coming. I just can't imagine he's going to want to play in 50-degree weather after last week. It seemed like a legit injury. Why would you withdraw being in the top 20 of an event on Saturday if it wasn't? So I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's not going to play here this week. Just wanted to bring that up, though. A couple of other guys in this range as we wind down. 7,400 and below. So I'm giving you maybe a little bit, probably my easiest question here of the day. Who are your top 2 plays under 7,400 on your first look? And then I'll give you mine, and then we'll get on out of here.
So under 7,400, again, we've just had a chance to look here. So like I've kind of been drifting down as we go, but let me see here. I'm going to throw Patrick Rogers in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say our 2 guys, Clark and Rogers, are both at 6,800.
Yeah. Actually, I would probably put Wyndham Clark above Patrick Rogers just because I think he's closer right now. So let me backtrack on that first one already. And then for a second guy, I do like Alex Noren, but again, we want to go under here. So we went a little bit cheaper. If you got someone, throw him out, Jason, because I gotta take a quick look.
All right. Yeah. Here's the thing. Okay. I'm absolutely prone to play golfers that I believe have the best talent in the game, right? And so this brings me to a golfer that's a little bit far down the list, but I can tell you, played here a lot in college, and he just came in the top 5 on the local IQ Series tour, which again, he's playing against professional golfers. It's not like he's not playing against nobody. Granted, it's not playing against Torrey Pines, but Justin Suh, okay, 6,600. I brought him up a couple of times here on this show specifically. Last time we saw him, he missed the cut at Bermuda. Not great. He's a great putter. He's not that good off the tee, so it worries me here a bit. But at 6,600, I'll probably take a few stabs.
I like it.
Because ultimately, just to finish, sorry, we don't know where this guy's going to be in a year. He could not even be on the PGA Tour. He could be at 7,800 or 8,000. We really don't know.
Yeah, he could be on the Korn Ferry Tour trying to grind up, but
Exactly. Yep.
he is very talented, and we saw towards the end of last year how good he can be. So
yep.
I actually like that call down there. I was kind of looking for someone like that, but I'm going to throw out Luke List, who actually played pretty well last week.
Yep.
Again, just a big hitter when he gets in the zone kind of thing. There's a couple other names that probably more consistent, probably have better floors, but for me, the Wyndham Clarks, the Patrick Rogers, the Luke Lists.
How about Sam Burns on a bounce back? Played
Sam Burns, absolutely.
Friday,
That's you can throw him in that basket of guys too. And Burns is probably I wouldn't say he's the best putter of the three, but he's probably the most consistent player of the three. So he should get involved in there too. I think people just confuse, like Burns can putt on pretty much any surface. So yeah, Burns definitely in there, but I'll throw Luke List out there as a nice 7K play. I think it's a good vending for him long-term too.
Me too. Well, that is going to do it. We've given all of our opening thoughts here. This is the PGA DFS First Look Show for the Farmers Insurance. So on your way out, first of all, thank you for joining on a Monday afternoon. Very much appreciate that. And on your way out, please don't forget to like and subscribe. So until next week, we are heading, next week, I believe, is the Waste Management Phoenix Open, a really fun event. There are going to be fans there. There are going to be fans on the 17th, so that'll be fun. Then we come back to California for a couple of weeks, Pebble Beach and the Genesis. So a lot of great golf coming up in the next couple of weeks. So thank you all for joining here again. And make sure we got a 4:45 NBA slate going on. That's our next show. Be sure to tune in for that. And of course, the DFS Strategy Show, 3:35 tomorrow with Ben and Tim. And then one last note, Ben Raz and I, we're going to be going on 7 o'clock Wednesday night this week. Wednesday's a big night in the NBA, so they're going to be doing the late show. Live Before Lock for Ben Raz and I will be at 7 o'clock. So till then, everybody, thanks for joining, and we will see you next week. Cheers.